Yes.
Okay.
Okay, we can get started. Good evening and welcome to the Parks and Recreation Commission meeting for Wednesday, March 10th, 2021. We are starting at 5:32 p.m. Rachel, could you please call roll?
Yes, thank you. Joe Greer,
Present?
Dom Gelsomino,
Present.
Autumn Short is absent. Jennifer Bobo,
Present.
Camden Hyde,
Present.
Keith Bevan,
Present.
John Nesmith,
Present.
Albert Kang is absent, Jessica West is absent, and Councilwoman Perot is absent.
Okay. Next, we need to move on to the adoption of the agenda. However, first I need to entertain a motion to amend the agenda in the new business. Item number 6 will be removed.
Madam President,
Yes.
I would like to this is Commissioner Gelsomino. I'd like to make a motion to amend tonight's agenda, removing the item in new business that you referred to.
Madam Chair, would
Say that
Commissioner,
wrong. Yes.
nope, very good, but would you also like to adopt the agenda as amended as part of your motion?
Part of it.
Oh, yes, I apologize. I thought it was going to be into two separate motions. Yes, I'd also like to add a motion to my motion to adopt the agenda as amended. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I get a second?
John Nesmith seconds.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the adoption of the agenda, the amended agenda carries. Okay, next, we have the approval of the minutes from the February 10th, 2021 regular meeting.
Madam President,
Yes, Commissioner Gilson?
this is, I'd like to make a motion to adopt the minutes or approve the minutes of last month's meeting.
John Nesmith seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Next, we are on to announcements.
Is that me?
That would be you, Shelley.
I'm Shelley Houston. I handle marketing and communications for the Parks and Rec Department. We've got a few things going. We're still kind of in wake up mode and planning gear, but the things that are awake are wide awake. And those are what I want to tell you about. Art has returned to Initial Point Gallery up on the 3rd floor of Meridian City Hall. There's a show up there now by the Treasure Valley Artists Alliance, and it's comprised of 37 different artists. And there's also a 3D artist named Sean Hobbs who has some 3D art in the display cases. That opened on Friday, and they had a reception for the artists and the public. And I think that'll stay in position till I think April 2nd. And then another show will come in. So it's good to see the gallery filled with art once again and open to the public as City Hall has reopened its front doors. This week and next, the ponds in our city parks are getting some fresh trout for fishing. Idaho Fish and Game is adding 900 trout to Kleiner Park's ponds and 250 trout to Settlers Park Pond. So fishing is free for any Idaho residents aged 14 and under. So it's great for kids. Everyone else needs a valid Idaho fishing license, and bag limits do apply. They can find details on the Fish and Game website. The Meridian Home Court opened on February 20th, primarily for basketball and pickleball, but also classes are going on there, things like jazzercise and line dancing that can be done with smaller groups at a socially distanced manner. I would also mention that our facility manager, Jake Guerra, was also named the city's Supervisor of the Year. And what was especially nice is he was nominated by one of his staff members. So that was quite a prestigious honor. We just finished up the finals for our Winter Cornhole League. We had 42-person teams compete. It was very successful. And a father and son team took the top prize in the competitive division. So they're real dynamos. We also had today our deadline for registration for our adult spring volleyball and spring and summer adult softball leagues. We were able to accept 48 co-ed and 48 women's teams for volleyball. And then for softball, we can accept 60 co-ed teams and 60 men's teams. And I think there's already a waiting list for the men's division. So adult sports are looking like they're going to be doing very well. I think play starts on March 29th. In terms of special events, Unplug and Be Outside is what we're currently planning. Renee White is coming up with a nice menu of activities in various outdoor locations. It'll be held May 5th through 8th. And I know the photo walk with a professional photographer, and we've got tennis lessons and lacrosse clinics and some disc golf activities. And the Treasure Valley Children's Theater has some workshops they're going to offer. So I have no doubt it's going to be a full menu of fun activities for those several days. Our big summer activity guide will be ready to be released to the public on Friday, April 7th. And registrations will open on April 9th. And we're going to have all sorts of classes and workshops. We're going to have our summer camp, Camp Meridian Move for the kids, sports camp. Even we're going to throw in a couple senior day trips and see if COVID numbers hold steady and things improve. Those will take place. So we'll watch for that guide. And then I mentioned Jake's Award. Also during the city all-staff meeting, our volunteer coordinator, Chelsea Cantrell, won one of our CARES Champion Awards, which is very prestigious. And she's an excellent reflection of our city's values. And she hopes to welcome our city volunteers back this spring. She's been in constant touch with them. They're all getting their vaccinations and they're chomping at the bit to be back in our parks and at the city hall front desk. So things are hip hopping and bebopping, and it'll just gain momentum and be more and more as we move into the new year. So that's my story and I'm sticking to it.
Does anybody have any questions for Shelley? Yes, applause. Thank you so much, Shelley. Even your presentation just brightens the day.
Thanks, guys. Have a great meeting.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to new business. We have the Community Garden and Kleiner Park update. So I'm pleased to welcome Julie Bokenkamp from the Meridian Co-op Gardeners. Well, she is the president from the Meridian Co-op.
Chairperson and members of the commission, thank you for having me back here. You know, a year ago this week, I was standing in this exact same spot, and the following week, everything shut down. So it's been an interesting year and an interesting ride, and we are proud to say that the garden was as successful as it always has been, and I would like to thank you.
Julie, we may have to have you speak directly into the mic. It's really hard to hear.
Right here, does that work?
Oh, there you go.
Would it help if I took my mask off at this distance or not? Is it better to keep it on? I'll do that. Anyway, so we, you know, when the orders came that things were shutting down, we didn't even know if we would be allowed to have a garden. And when consulting with Mike, along with the city attorney, it was really nice to be considered essential because we had ordered seeds and plants and we were ready to go. And we felt that there was a need to be able to be outside, a need to be able to have our hands in the dirt. So we were excited to do that. We're still a group of 32 families, and we are managing the Kleiner Park Community Garden, the Kleiner Park Pollinator Garden Project, and the Kleiner Park Fruit Tree Project. And it's just been, I can't even tell you how exciting it is to be able to share all three of those projects with you, along with members of the community. You know, despite the challenges of COVID, as that came down, we thought, how are we going to do this? And initially the big challenge was We have a group of 32 people, but we weren't allowed to meet in groups that large. And so we put our heads together. We figured out ways to be a little more creative and to work outside the box. And it turned out to be an amazing year. And we learned a lot of things about ourselves, and I think about the garden and how it works, that we'll probably continue to implement going into the next season. So we adapted. We found creative ways to move forward. We stayed physically distanced. There was plenty of room out of the garden to do that. We could wear masks if we wanted to or not. We were able to be spaced apart in our pictures. Our pictures look kind of strange in groups. Families were kept together since we didn't have our little gardener program, and we were able to keep our garden tools clean by washing them down with bleach each time we used them. And the garden turned out to be a sanctuary for many people. They found it to be just, it was a date on the calendar. That was the thing that was most important. It's like at one point, do you remember looking on your refrigerator or your calendar going, there's nothing on there? And so a lot of people look forward to having a Tuesday or a Saturday to be able to come to the garden. It provided that outside time, that vitamin D time, and I think just overall nurture our well-being. Not going anywhere, folks. Seem to be frozen. There we go. It allowed us to keep building community. People were glad to come back together. About a third of us have been together for 8 or 9 years. So we've worked this garden together for a long time. It allowed us to continue to socialize. It allowed us to still grow and give away flowers. It gave purpose to our lives. I have to defer to you. And it continued to provide an abundance of fresh fruit and food for our members and for those in need. And specifically, we donated over 8,000 pounds, 4 tons of food that went to 3 food banks. The food banks were unable to disperse the foods the way they normally had in the past. It used to be you could shop at the Meridian Food Bank and get the amount of food that you needed. And now they were putting boxes of food in there. So we added a 3rd food bank. We started donating food to St. Mark's Catholic Church over in Boise. And so that was a 3rd spot for us to be able to share that food. That donation of 8,000 pounds doesn't even include 32 families taking home their poundage every week. So we estimate that we're probably growing at least 20,000 pounds or more in that garden. We had 314 volunteer hours. It was, I think, a great place for the Ada County Sheriff's Department to be able to come because we were considered a safe place for them to be able to work since we were outside. And we also instituted giveaways. So we, as a group, came up with family names that we knew that had need, and we created our own food bags. We bought rice and beans along with the produce from the garden, and we gave those to 20 families. We gave away red tomatoes, we gave away green tomatoes. We also started giving food to the closet, and the closet does, they do clothing for teenage clients, and this was just another opportunity for those families to be able to have access to fresh produce, and that's probably something we'll continue this year in 2021. There should be, go back one. There's a little there. So one of our gardeners has a roommate who creates little videos, and he came out and did probably an hour of video time and came up with this cute little movie, which is just a moment in our day. You can just get a feel for how that looks. Supposed to be a little music with that. That was just on a harvest day to give people an idea of where it starts and where it ends. You know, we're more than just a garden, and that's the part I think for me that I absolutely love. We can grow food, but every year we want to come up with and do something different. And so I think the part that ties my heart to this garden are the kids. And our program, Little Gardeners, we were put on hold, but the kids were still able to learn everything that they always have. They had the opportunity to plant seeds. They had the opportunity to watch those seeds grow, to water them, and to weed them and to harvest them. The kids love digging in the dirt. I think it was just, once again, a nice place for the kids to be able to go. We're hoping that we can do that again this year, where the kids will have a program at least once a month throughout our summer. And these are just pictures of our kids, whether they're working in the garden or harvesting. You can just see the joy on their faces. And it's a classroom. That garden is just an amazing classroom for the kids and for the adults. I think all of us learn something every week that we're out there. You know, the education takes place with our kids, but it also takes place with our gardeners. We have people, this young couple that's at the top, they're from Nepal. And this is the first time they knew and learned anything about gardening. So they called this class Gardening 101. And they were pregnant for the first time. So this last year was Gardening 101 and Parenting 101 for them. They live far away from family, so they found a community within the garden group. And that was a group of people that could support them through becoming parents for the first time. We have Girl Scout troops that stay connected with us, and this is Girl Scout Troop 83. And they came to learn how to arrange flowers. They were working on their Bronze Award, which involved working with elderly people in assisted living facilities. And when those were shut down, they were no longer able to visit, but they found this opportunity in September to be able to deliver flowers. And then we held 3 community flower events with instruction and 2 open flower cutting events. So that just allowed people to come out to the garden when we were out there and cut the flowers that they needed for making their own arrangements. This is something really exciting. I was talking to Mike about this the other day. So there's a new group that was formed called the Treasure Valley Community Garden Cooperative. It was started by 2 young people over in Boise. And the goal was to create a community garden network. And it was to try to locate all of the gardens within this area. We're stretched right now out to Caldwell and Middleton and then clear over into East Boise. So we've located gardens and now we've created a map. And on their Facebook or their website, you can actually pull up the map and click on where those gardens are to find one near where you live. We wanted to connect individuals to these gardens. So right now we've got a Facebook campaign out there that's trying to connect people to those specific gardens. The bigger problem is there's very few openings in garden locations. We're providing coaching, advertising, we're sharing best practices with one another. We're sharing resources like garden tools, volunteers, and seeds. We're creating a support network. We're hoping to work with the extension offices to be able to maybe provide some support or maybe relieve me for a weekend, but people that have the experience to be able to do that. They have a heartbeat for food security and education, food sovereignty, working with some of the farm workers out in Caldwell to give them access. We actually delivered food, plants, and seeds to Duck Valley, to the Indian reservations down in northern Utah to be able, I think they got 88 backyard gardens started. So that was exciting. My connection to that is we run a pretty unique garden in Kleiner Park. There's not many gardens that are similar to that. And one of my goals and hopes has been to duplicate that process to see if we can't do that. So right now I've got a garden in Middleton that has created a co-op gardeners part of what they do. So they're gonna start with 10 families on top of the church garden that they run. I have communicated and had conversations with a woman down in Houston who's trying to start a garden within her HOA, talking to a woman out in Homedale who's wanting to do something very similar, and recently was on the phone with somebody from here who's in charge of her family's farmland up in North Dakota, and they're putting in a 2,500 home planned community. And she was very interested in how we do what we do out at Kleiner Park. So it's been a really unique opportunity, I think, to be able to talk with people about what we do and why our program is as successful as it is. The Pollinator garden, guys, on the left, that was planted in June of 2019. That's what it looked like before we started. The picture in the middle just exploded with growth last year and again. The first year and then again last year. It was absolutely beautiful. We continue to see more and more pollinators out in the garden. We still wish we would see more butterflies. Because I don't sit still very well, I wanted to keep going. So we expanded the footprint of that garden and we went north. And so we've increased it probably about another third to what it was. So now it goes all the way up to the corner of where the fence line is and almost up to the wall of the maintenance yard building. So this was the expanding the footprint. As you're facing the pollinator garden, it's off to the left. And the first picture shows after we removed a tree and then putting in the block wall that was paid for by our gardeners. And then once we started putting in the plants. And so we're really excited to see how that'll look going into 2021. Signs, we added signs, guys. They're everywhere, which is really a lot of fun. There's 4 interpretive signs that we added to the garden this year. There's a large one at the entrance, and that says this garden is for pollinators, and it explains how to care for, why you should care and how you can help, and it also provides a list of native plants. I think 10 or 12 of those are ones that we actually have in the garden, and most of the plants in the garden are labeled. There's 3 small signs. One is called Bees Are the Champion, and it's talking about honeybees, which really aren't the pollinators that we're taking care of out there. The small sign talks about native bees and the difference between them and honeybees. And then there's one called a flower supermarket and the importance of having so many different varieties of flowers planted and the different types of when they bloom. And that's just a nice picture back there. There's the large sign. Yeah, so there's one of the small signs that's set up, and then the next picture shows the large sign at the entrance. Right there. These signs were designed by a woman who also did the ones in Bee City. And so there's a similarity to the signs. The advantage to us was the signs were designed, and so we saved a tremendous amount of money by not having to redesign signs. We also saved money by going in with a number of other groups that were ordering signs at the same time. So with shipping, design, and if we ordered more than one of the same sign, we got a tremendous discount. So it really was, I think, advantageous for us to do that. It gives the garden a real presence, I think. I think it looks official, not just like something where we threw some plants in. We've had a lot of compliments on the sign, so we're excited about that and do appreciate the support from the city who helped us with that. Bees are the champions. So that's what one of the smaller signs looks like up close, and that's where it's been installed. There's just some great information there that the people walking through the garden at any time can sort of do a self-guided tour and enjoy and learn a little bit along the way. And if you build it, they will come. That's what they tell us in Field of Dreams. On the left, we have an indiscriminate bumblebee, a hoverfly in the middle, and a honeybee over here on the right. And we have a honeybee, and then a huntai bumblebee, and then a yellow bumblebee. So we're seeing tremendous amounts of bumblebees. I remember the first 2 years I was in that garden before we had any permanent planting, and we never really saw bumblebees at all. And they cover some of these plants. And that to me is really exciting, that we've created the habitat that they need, and we've also provided the food sources that they're looking for. The fruit tree project. We now have 13 fruit trees in the park. The goal with the grant from Idaho Botanical Gardens was to have 6. So you guys have really bent over backwards and said yes. We have 8 apple trees, 2 peach trees, 1 cherry, 2 pear, and 1 plum. We've had opportunities to learn about those trees, how to care for them. We had a pruning class this last week that Matt helped us with. And we're hoping that we actually experience a little more fruit from those this year. We did have apples and pears last year. Somebody picked all of the Honeycrisp apples before we did, and somebody picked the pears, but we were able to enjoy the Braeburn apples that came. That's where the trees are. So if you take a look on there, you can see where the pollinator garden is down here in blue, where the maintenance building is. And this lower blue part, that's not part of the pollinator garden, that's part of the subdivision. That's next door. Those are the zones of the garden where our compost, our storage shed is. And those yellow sticky marks, that's where the 13 fruit trees are planted. So just to give you a summary, we had more than 8,000 pounds donated. We gave away and sent out more than 144 flower arrangements. We had the opportunity through Mountain View High School to give away hundreds of tomato plants. And then through D&B and Meridian, they give me all of their end of season seeds. I have given away thousands of seed packets through the garden. The Treasure Valley Community Garden Cooperative Commission, I think that we've got huge opportunity there. One of our gardeners worked for a printing company, so we had hats with logos made. That was exciting. We won first place in a photo contest at Territorial Seed. They're out of Cottage Grove, Oregon. And we took first prize with that picture. And we won a $100 gift certificate to spend with them along with a big box of seeds. We expanded that pollinator garden and we've got that total of 13 fruit trees planted. So the goals and the dreams, what do we do next? We're going to continue to grow food for our families. We're going to continue to give away flowers, but this year we're adding dahlias and we are so excited about that. One, it's a learning experience because they're difficult. Two, they're beautiful. So we can't wait to add those to the flower arrangements. We're going to experiment using olipots, which are sort of a clay pot that you bury in the ground to do watering. It's a way to handle some of the watering, especially in our hot temperatures. We hope to repaint our storage shed. We're in the process of building a little free library for books and seeds that will be installed somewhere out there. We'll continue to support the TVCG co-op. And we have already, this was a goal for the year, but we've already started it. We've created a Friends of the Pollinator Garden group. That group is on Facebook called Friends of the Pollinator Garden. My goal was to find people in the neighborhood by the garden who were willing to be a part of it, to add some of our gardeners, along with some people just in the community who had an interest in this. We're up to 10 or 12 people, I believe, right now, and their purpose will be to maintain the Kleiner Park project, along with looking for other projects that we might be able to support the city with. So I'm really excited about that. So what's next beyond Kleiner Park? I've been in talks with Mike and Jeremy and a few other people about planting some of these empty spaces that are in my neighborhood at Heroes Park. And the Treasure Valley Pollinator Garden Project has a deal going on right now. So they're selling pollinator packs. Josie out at Peaceful Belly in Caldwell is growing all of those. And so we've had some conversations and we're going to do not so much a pollinator garden like a teaching garden, but more mass plantings, but to at least be able to create some habitat and some food sources for the bees. I'm also, and there's not a slide for this, this is basically toward the end, but there's, I recently came across a grant that I'm investigating and looking at possibly doing some additional work over at Kleiner. So I'd like to say thank you, City of Meridian Parks and Rec. We couldn't do it without you. Kyle and Dan are on the left installing signs. Wade is just there for us whenever we need him. John helped install, and I didn't mention, the city installed a water spigot for us on that side where the pollinator garden was. It was a big expense, not anything we ever could have done. It was necessary, and we thank you for that. That was a huge, huge deal to us. And so thank you. Yeah, any questions? That's us on our last day. The garden was taken down, pretty empty.
I'm not sure that I have any questions, but it probably goes without saying that we should be thanking you after that presentation. You took a really hard
Madam
year
President.
and expanded. Yes, Commissioner Gelsomino. No?
Oh, sorry. It kind of cut off there. I apologize, Madam President. Madam
Okay.
President, Julie, you know, this is Commissioner Gelsomino. I look forward to your presentation so much every year. I mean, it's one of my absolute favorites of all the presentations that we get. And for all the reasons that you listed out this evening, the community impact, the environmental impact, the educational, societal impacts that the community garden has. And if I could wave a magic wand and plant a pollinator plant or indigenous native plant of Idaho in every path, along every pathway and along wherever you can plant a plant in the city of Meridian, I would, because I believe not only does that continue the environmental stewardship that we're working towards, and that what you're working towards, but it demonstrates an interest and a dedication to emphasizing and planting those native plants versus plants that might be kind of just the standard. So that would be me in a hallmark perfect world. But the things that you do and that we're able to do in the real world are so impressive. And honestly, as President Greer said, we should be the ones thanking you. The impact that you and the community garden and the gardeners have on our city and throughout the state are they're priceless.
I would like to mention one thing that I forgot to say. We fulfilled our grant with Idaho Botanical Gardens. That initial request, we estimated that project to be at $2,800, and we had about $2,000 in in-kind donations, and they gave us $979. By the time we expanded that project and added the signs and added the footprint, we topped out at almost $7,500, and most of that in in-kind donations.
That's amazing.
Which was amazing. So I do appreciate your support more than it allows us. And it's like, what next? Like, what next? Like, give me a piece, find those places, Dom, and I'll plant something there. So like I say, I walk around Heroes Park all the time. There's drip lines that run through there. There's nothing planted there. I know Mike and I have talked, and he says, we do turf really well. We don't do grass, we don't do flowers really well. Well, we're gonna learn how to do that. So, and if I have a group that's willing to sort of manage that, and if we can grow that to sort of become a community group of people that we can kind of send out on these tasks, I'm excited about that.
Well, if anyone can orchestrate that, it would be you. I'm confident. I think that you're a true representation of our community,
Thank
really.
you. Thank you.
Madam President, this is Steve.
Yes, Steve?
Two things. First of all, regarding the success of the pollinator garden, I just wanted to mention that I did go out and visit the pollinator garden last. I was shocked at the number of bees that I saw. Like she was saying, some of the plants were just covered with them. So I think to say that it is as successful as a pollinator garden is very true. And then second, I just wanted to make quick mention of Discovery Park. Julie, you mentioned, hoping to expand what you do at Kleiner Park to other locations. And we have plans to move forward with the next phase of Discovery Park. And one of the things we have on our wish list of amenities is a community garden out there. Of course, the thing that would prevent us from doing that would be not having someone to run it. Additional resources of people that might be interested in doing for South Meridian what you do in North Meridian, but we would be very interested if you have any resources to talk about possibly replicating the Kleiner Park model in Discovery Park.
Yeah, I would very much love to see that happen in the future. And I think you know, it might be something I would be able to hopefully help guide that process through. I actually think too that this Treasure Valley Community Garden group that we're working together, we need places where there can be gardens. And so that's something that we need. What we have identified is most of us that are running gardens are retired and older people when we have the time. But there's a lot of young people out there that want to get more involved, and I'm getting to know them. So I feel like I'm getting to know more people that have a heartbeat for doing what we're doing that might be able to do something like that. And, you know, trying to connect with that end of town, I don't know a lot of people on that side of town, but I think once we made the connections, we might very easily be able to put that together, just because so much has already been put in place.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else have anything? Julie? Well, I look forward to your presentation every year,
Thanks so much. I appreciate
as everyone
it.
else does, but this, I'm just really kind of speechless. You really have went above and beyond. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Rachel.
Okay, next on our list, we have Meridian Parks and Rec Department Classes and Camps Update with Jenna Fletcher. Oh, there you are.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. I am going to share my screen. Okay. Good evening, everyone. I'm Jenna Fletcher. I'm, like they said, the Camps and Classes Coordinator. I've been with Meridian Parks and Rec for just a little over 2 years. Previously, I was Jake's summer camp coordinator, which turned into full-time. So, yeah. So I think the last time I was here, I was just getting started with Summer Camp 2020, which in and around itself was a whole new ball game with COVID just kind of ramping up. So we were able to finish out camp strong in August. We had a wonderful summer adjusting to all the new guidelines and regulations. We adapted to COVID-19 guidelines, continued to run all of our programs, the majority of our programs through fall and winter 2020, and now coming into spring 2021. And then a little over 1,400 people participated in classes in the last half of 2020. So just a little bit about our revenue history. As you can see 2020 was a little harsh on us, as to be expected just with COVID, with classes shutting down in the spring, limiting number of participants who could register. But with us opening back up, we're really eager and excited to open up a full range of classes for this coming summer. So some of our summer camp successes and highlights from last year, we weren't able to go on field trips just due to some of those COVID guidelines that we wanted to follow with being in a bus in a closed space. So we brought field trips to us. So one of our really favorite ones was Corbin Maxey, the animal expert. He brought a bunch of his snakes. The kids loved it, some of his giant tortoise. We also had Katie right here in the middle. She was our summer camp coordinator. She built our own like rocket with an air compressor. So the kids spent the day building their own rockets and shooting them off. And then of course we partnered with Meridian Canine Police Department and then fire safety. So some of these classes, they're held all around throughout Meridian. We of course have our Meridian Community Center. If you haven't been in there, I encourage you can contact me and I can take you in there to give you a quick tour. We have 2 rooms, so a main room and then that window, those windows up there, that's where the majority of our art and photography classes take place. And then in the middle, that's home court and that's Bay 5. So that's where I put dance, tumbling, line dancing, all that kind of jazzercise, all those classes that can spread out. And that also recently got a remodel. And Jake does a really great job with his staff, keeping that nice and clean and up to date. And then of course, like I said, throughout the summer, we hold tennis camps. So we're using Settlers Park, Mountain View. I go into the schools for summer camp, like Sienna, Discovery, and Willow Creek. And so we have a great partnership with West Ada. So some of the classes that we do offer, like I mentioned, once COVID hit, we stopped classes. Once we were able to open back up, we had smaller class sizes, just in order to follow that central district health order. All of our instructors and contractors were instructed to sanitize their equipment before, in between if possible, and after. Many of our art classes actually just had individual supplies for them, which was wonderful. And then of course, physical distancing and masking when that was feasible to take place. We offered line dancing, jazzercise, some tong sudo, tennis, summer camp throughout the summer. And then this coming year, hopefully getting some more like senior trips in there also. So this right here is just a little snapshot of what our community center times look like for this summer. So this summer, our community center is full essentially all the time, Monday through Friday, throughout the whole day. So it's great to have this many classes being offered and being able to fill that time and having so many options for people to participate in. And then this is the home court schedule. Some of our instructors lighten up their load a little during the summer just so they can enjoy summer. But we have morning classes and then those evening classes. And then Jake usually can put some pickleball people in to use that Bay 5 in the afternoon. So to get the word out, we create our summer or any of our activity guides. Just last summer, we decided to bring our activity guide in-house. We used to contract out and have a graphic designer design everything. But this year or last year, I apologize, we just brought it in-house. So Shelly has done an amazing job creating and formatting a whole new activity guide. So like she said, I'm currently working on the summer guide, which will come out in April. So this just gives you a little rundown of when we release the guide. So we do 3 guides, and then our summer one is a really big one with all of our tennis lessons, all of the summer camps, and all that. Other ways we market, our Facebook page, we create individual ads for classes that we can send out through our software registration, which hits 30,000 plus people, which is wonderful. And that is it. If you have any questions.
Anybody have any questions? I wouldn't say that's it. That seemed like an awful lot. I'm, you know, with all of Parks and Rec, you included you are what has been keeping our community going through all of this. So it's nice to see, even though maybe it was a little lower number, it wasn't a 0, right, last year.
Madam President,
Yes.
this is Garrett. I just wanted to comment on some of Jenna's remarks. Obviously, the numbers don't really show, but Jenna did such a great job and phenomenal job this last summer in keeping summer camp going. She had to deal with staff getting COVID, shutting down schools, communicating with parents, putting in protocols, and bringing field trips to camp rather than going on field trips. So overall, and if you remember, summer COVID kind of hit in March last year, right? And we started shutting things down. Well, the planning for summer camp starts in January. So Jenna was able to really adapt quickly and put these protocols in place to still hold camp. And she just did a phenomenal job with that. And on top of all that, we took the activity guide in-house, right? So I don't know how many thousands of dollars we saved by doing that, but with her and Shelly working on that, it literally saved us thousands of dollars. So kudos to Jenna and her summer camp staff last year, and just everybody involved in that stuff. It was really good. So I just wanted to give her some accolades there too. She did such a great job last year. So
thank you.
Thank you, Garrett. It also sounds like Jenna is downplaying her role just a little bit. So thank you. I didn't even consider that you start planning so early in the year, and so how you guys had to adapt and fluctuate was probably pretty much on the fly. So very nicely done. Anybody else have any questions? And I really liked your presentation.
Thank you. Thank you,
It was
everyone. Have a wonderful evening.
Yeah, thank you, Jenna. Okay. Now we have Meridian Parks and Rec Department Movie Night update, and that is with Renee White, my Christmas friend, the recreation coordinator.
Hello, everybody. I'm going to share my screen here. And I'm hoping you can all see that. Everyone have it?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, great. Thank you, Madam President, members of the council. It's good to see you all. I feel like it's been a very strange year for the events side of Meridian Parks and Recreation. We've pivoted where we could and had to pull back on some other things, but we are excited about the possibilities of 2021 this summer. Cautiously optimistic that we'll be getting people together again for my favorite thing, which is just that sense of community that comes with large gatherings and celebrations. So tonight, I only have 15 minutes, so I'm going to try and keep this brief because I do want to offer time for all of you to give me some feedback. We've been having some discussions in our office regarding the possibility of taking movie night and splitting it into 2 separate events. And that's why this slide is says movie night and teen night. The reason for this is I think we've talked an awful lot about teens coming to movie night. They come in droves. It's one of the few places that they can come and hang out for free. They can be a little overwhelming. They can be playful. They can be a little disruptive. And we do our best to make sure that that doesn't happen. But we know that in 2018, we conducted basically a gap analysis, a review of our programs. And one of the things that we discovered was that we really underserve the teens in our community. So what we're talking about is the possibility of running a pilot program this summer to see if we can offer something, a place for teens and preteens to socialize. So what does that look like? Let's talk about that. So we're talking about splitting the movie nights, taking the summer, having half the movie nights happen in Settlers Park, just as they happen with some COVID protocols, and then offering a teen night at Meridian Home Court, really targeting ages of that preteen through teenager, and not just offering some sort of a movie, but also trying to augment it with quite a few games and activities. So these are the dates that we're looking at, half and half. And of course, summer, we always define it as when school gets out to when school gets back in. So that's how we arrive at these dates. So in talking to some of the people that, our recreation partners, and especially Jake over at Home Court, we're looking at the possibilities of basketball, pickleball, volleyball, spike ball, board games, really just kind of anything that we can get those kids to do that we can be engaged with. So some of the challenges that we look at, it's, I'm a little nervous that teens won't come. Let's just be fair. Teens are really hard to program for. What do they like? So that will be a continued, challenge for us. Let's see what if they will come. And that's why we're calling this really a pilot program. Is this going to be attractive to our sponsors? I do know I've had a conversation with one of the local churches who was really excited about it. And so that's, I think there are opportunities out there, but since it's new, what kind of sponsorship can we get so that this program stays self-sustaining? Movie night is completely financially self-sustaining. We do have some questions about pre-registration versus drop-in. The idea is if we can pre-register, perhaps we can, well, first of all, we can limit the numbers based on whatever COVID protocols are happening at the time, which I think those are loosening up, so that may not be as important. But we can also then have some contacts with parents if we get kids that are not being nice. And they fight, they're young, and sometimes they misbehave. We would have the ability to call parents. So we're still kind of noodling on whether that makes sense. And then of course, there's the challenge that offering movie night every other week versus every week during the summer is going to reduce the movie night attendance. So that's really an unknown. So, what does success look like if we were able to do this? I think it's pretty easily. It's that the youth of our community are attending, that the attendees are well-mannered, they're getting along, it's a positive social interaction. The police department is excited about this with the ability they want to just continue to have opportunities to interact with the youth of our community. And then, of course, there's the, does this stay financially self-sustaining? So, we've talked a little bit about some of the safety measures, limiting attendance. We will continue to have security on site. And I think the fact that this is indoor, it offers, it's a little different than our movie night where we can't really, getting them to leave the park can be a challenge beyond just asking them to leave the area. And we're, super thankful to have our police department there to help us with that. But I think the threat of, if you get kicked out, you can't come back in. We have a hard perimeter. And that is something that I know Sean Harper, in my discussions with him in the past, has really suggested for movie night itself. So it would be interesting to see whether we can do this with a teen night. Of course, I can go into some of the safety measures that we have for COVID, for movie night itself, but I'd really like to hear some of your feedback regarding just this proposal. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, I'll give you my 2 cents. I think that I agree. I know that there has been a gap for teens because I recently had one graduate, and they did go down to movie night, and I know that there were some issues with that, some disruption. So the idea of giving them a separate location, and like you said, where it's contained, is a good idea. So I think it's a great idea, at least to try and see, if you get the attendance.
Madam President, this is Commissioner Hyde.
Yes, Commissioner Hyde.
So as a teen myself, I think that one of the things, if you're worried about teens actually coming or not, is one of the things to, entice teens to come is incentives. And if we're playing games at home court or wherever this is going to be, having prizes or just small things for, teens to get excited about is really important. And one of the things we can implement to bring more teens to it.
Great idea. Thank you.
Probably popcorn or something. I don't know. Food. I know that's not something that you could just provide, but I know that's incentive for mine. Anybody else have anything? Well, if I'm the only person commenting, I can keep going now. As far as sponsorships go, who is sponsoring? Is Sparklight still doing? I don't remember.
Sparklight is still our presenting sponsor, and we have bounced this idea off of them, and they are game to try anything that would allow us to offer activities with their name on them. So.
That's good. Well, in my opinion, I don't see any issue with it. Apparently, there aren't any other opinions right now.
All right. Well, I think with that, I think my conversations with Steve and Garrett, they're both in support of the pilot program, and we'll give this a try. Of course, we're doing anything and everything that we can to move forward with whatever current COVID protocols are in place. And so it's nice to have a little bit of flexibility to try something. I think certainly this year is a good time to implement a new, to have a test pilot program and see if it flies, see if the kids are interested in it.
I agree. Plus, with some of the things that have been going on, it also, gives them an opportunity to socialize, which I think has been really lacking.
Yes, I think that is exactly true.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, Well, thank you for your presentation. It was very nice to see and hear you.
It was good to see and hear you too. Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Council.
Thank you, Renee. Have a good night. Okay, we have removed item number 6 from the agenda. So item number 7 is the Pathway Projects Update with Kim Warren, our Pathways Project Manager.
Thank you, Madam President and Commissioners. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I have mostly pictures for you tonight and hopefully not too many words. I'll try not to take up the canceled items time with extra discussion, but we have a lot going on with Pathways. Let's see. Oh. 1 second. Let's see, I practiced this. Are you able to see that yet, or are you still seeing me?
We still
No,
see
we
you.
don't see anything.
Okay, I think that,
There it goes.
how about that?
Yes.
I'm trying to get into. So do you see the title?
Yes.
The title slide?
Pathway infill.
Great, okay. So this is our Lucky 13 list of pathway infill projects that we proposed as kind of a new way to do things to enhance connectivity, across town with projects that we thought would be more achievable more quickly. So we hired 3 consultant teams. Oh gosh, it was the end of last year. And they've been working on these batches of projects. And I've given you a cursory update of these before, and we're just a little deeper into them. So I actually had to divide the presentation into 2 bits because it was so graphic heavy that it was a really big file. So we'll have a slight pause in the middle. And also because of that, if you have questions along the way or would like to make a comment, feel free to raise your hand and to save us slipping back. We can always do that too. But maybe Joe and Steve, you can help watch hands raised and monitor that just in case anyone wants to comment along the way, feel free. So the first project, we're focusing on a lot of gaps along the 5-mile pathway. And this is near the wastewater treatment plant, our new trail hub. It's a really key mile that we haven't been able to get through. We have a lot of pathway up to the northwest. We have a lot of pathway along the 5-mile creek to the southeast. So we're getting close to that 5 miles, but we really don't have it until we have this. And there's been some movement, some development applications, people selling. So we're going to get a chance, I think, to move this through. So we're working with a design consultant. This is
Madam President, if I can interrupt for just a second, I want to let Kim know that we're still seeing your screen that's not in slideshow mode. So we're still seeing the title.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let me try again. I don't know why it's, so you're seeing with comments. And let me end the show. Thanks for that, Steve. Let me try this again. Does that look any better?
We still see you right now.
Okay. Share screen.
So we now see your screen, but it's the, oh, there we go. Now it
Is
looks
that
like
the right one?
yes.
Thank you for letting me know. It's a little blind on these presentations. Anyways, so here's our proposed alignment for this project. There's some existing pathway just west of 10 Mile and across the 9 Mile Creek. Nampa Meridian is in agreement with this alignment, so is Public Works. We have reached out to Brighton, who is working on the Quartet subdivision, and they have agreed to let us pay for a portion of their bridge to widen it so that we can have a full pedestrian facility there. And then the pathway will continue on the north side through the Courtyard subdivision and out to Black Cat. So this is a really important connection. And it's looking like ACHD owns this parcel. They know they need to build a pathway. If we beat them to it, they'll reimburse us. And then otherwise, we have a bit of a, trying to think of the word, encroachment issue here to work out, and then we'll just stay in the easement. So this one is feeling like it's close in terms of being able to move forward. Here's a detail of the 9 Mile Creek crossing. There were some issues with the floodway and the floodplain. So the location was just to stay out of that. So it'll be a relatively simple kind of a bridge, but we did need 2 crossings for this segment. So it was really nice to have some receptivity from Brighton, and it's always a better deal to pay for a portion of a bridge than to have to do one ourselves. So we're still working that out, but we're really excited about the possibility. So the next project we are calling the Creason Crossing. This is one where we've heard from a lot of people in this area, sort of between Settlers Park and the Bud Porter portion of the 5 Mile pathway, that they're really close to parks and pathways, but they can't really access them very well. So we're looking at a connection to get across the Creason and then down to where, the action is, or where the pathway will take us to some. So in detail, okay, now remember how Shelley was turned sideways before. North is right on this, so it can be a little confusing. I've labeled a few landmarks. So Bud Porter and the parks are down here. This is south. This is the Waterbury Park subdivision, and then there's another one to the north across the Creason Lateral. Currently, people are unofficially and dangerously crossing just a little irrigation-related structure that it's actually up here that is not ideal. So that was part of the intent to bring in this legitimate crossing. We met with the Homeowners Association, and they've reached out to us before. They seem basically in favor of it. We're going to work out a few details with alignment. There's some concern that the pathway is pretty close to rear yard fences over here, and we have some latitude to meander it. So we'll make some adjustments, but we think there's general support in terms of getting an easement, and we've said ball's in your court, and please hurry if you want to be at the top of the list in terms of budget requests and moving this one forward. So the Linder Road pathway, north up here by Chinden, the new Winco. Linder Road is one of our major routes identified to get us north across Chinden, down to Eagle Island and the river and onto the Boise River Greenbelt, to connect more broadly. So this is key. This project got a little bit abbreviated because Winco ended up being conditioned to put in some pathway on the north end, and then some was accomplished with the ITD redo of State Highway 2026. So this is shortened a bit. And again, north is to the right. So really there's an existing 5-foot sidewalk, and we're just heading from Cayuse Creek north. It's one owners association that we met with already. They seem amenable. So we'll just rip out the 5-foot sidewalk, add an additional 5-foot, add a 10-foot walk. And then there's some trees that will be impacted. And we always reassure people that we are all about trees, and we'd be glad to mitigate for any trees that we need to take out. And then the Homeowners Association also mentioned that they'd like to see us do a little grading to sort of blend that pathway in. So this one is pretty straightforward, and again, not too glamorous, but really important in terms of making that connection north. So still on Linder Road, another segment of the 5-mile pathway. So near Tully Park, a couple of years ago, actually when I first started, it was on my project list, the Linder sidewalks we completed, and that expanded the existing sidewalk from 5 to 10 foot. We still have a bit of a gap We're at the intersection. And after that, we're on to Bridge Tower and some really great pathway across that next mile. So we're just filling in a gap here. Again, north is to your right. The original pathways, or the pathways master plan, shows the connection continuing to the north. And then, you know, the design project team gets together, and we did have the idea that it might be nice to route it along the 5 Mile Creek, just to get more of an off-road experience, you know, enjoy this amenity. We got Nampa Meridians okay to do that. We reached out to the paramedics, and then, and I'm going to credit Steve with this one and maybe ask you all what you think. Steve's comment was that maybe people really won't want to divert. Maybe they're eager to move on and they'll end up using a, you know, a sub-width strip of sidewalk in lieu of having that pathway connection. So I'm going to go back, and essentially we're right here. So would they divert along the 5 Mile Creek, and then would they go back and across? Or is it better to just keep that pathway straight? Does anybody care to comment on that? I think we're leaning toward the straight option for now.
I would probably agree that people are going to probably go straight. Although I like the idea of the path along the creek.
Thank you, Madam President. I do think it's important to explore options. And we actually talked about other things we could do here. Could we split it and have 2 one-way sidewalks? But in the end, we're going, I think, probably very simple and just get us connecting. So let's get us on. And it's a
Madam President. Sorry, Kim.
Yes, Commissioner
Bobo.
I would agree that going straight would be there. I've actually ridden this area quite a bit, and you can't really see where the road goes. There is that, it's currently dirt and rocky, so I don't go down there and wear that now. But when you're riding on it, it's hard to see where that goes. But you know, if you're going straight, there's a light there, and then you can cross and hit that pathway to go over to Rita Husky if that's the direction you're going. That I would think you would tend to just go straight if that's available, because that's where you can see and you know. Otherwise, you don't know which way you go. Unless you're wanting to go, what would that be, west, down U-Stick? That would be the only reason why you would take that other pathway.
And I think, Commissioner Bobo, thank you. That was part of the discussion. And then initially, we looked into the reroute because there were some power, there were street lights that needed moving, and that isn't really that difficult, but it makes it more complicated. So we thought about going around. And theoretically, we could leave it as a 7-foot sidewalk, but we would like to paint that center line that we've been showing on some of these projects all the way along the 5 Mile pathway. In fact, one of the consultants that we're working with is putting together an exhibit for us to get a license agreement with ACHT, so that where we interface with their intersections, we are free to come in and paint that double line, and we need a 10-foot width to do that. So I think that's why we've got our focus back here. But I mean, the line theoretically would help guide people. It just is quite a bit out of the way, and it's a bit more path-based. So this will probably be the way that we go. I appreciate your input. And Steve, again, I appreciate yours. I think that was insightful.
Excuse me, Kim. So
yes,
the license agreement would be for a 10-foot wide sidewalk, or it continue?
Oh yeah.
7? Oh,
and
okay. Nice. Okay.
Thank you, Madam President. I will just stop for a moment and explain that we're thinking about the 5 Mile pathway as our major pathway spine. And we've had an idea that in places where it tends to get a little bit lost, where we're near the roadways, or say on Fairview Avenue, where we're doing the other improvement, that painting the line would give it some continuity. And people, in addition to maybe having some signs, people could see where it goes. And so the license agreement I mentioned earlier was just kind of permission to do the painting of the whole pathway. So there's a little project that's sort of the documentation we need to make the ask and get the permission. Is that clear?
Yes, that makes sense. Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next. So I know Commissioner West is not here tonight, but I think of this as her pathway refrain. I know we mentioned this before. At the east end of McMillan, where it meets Locust Grove, there's a missing stretch of pathway, and it's just a gap right here. So got Heritage Middle School to the west, existing pathway at Saguaro Canyon. This is the Limp Larkwood pathway we completed last year. And this is the last remaining bit. It's one owner and 2 parcels. So the owner's been contacted. We have yet to finalize the easement, but since it seems like a fairly obvious place to put a sidewalk, it might actually spare the owner some trouble. So that's in the works to finalize that connection. And then just around the corner, also at McMillan and Locust Grove, and Locust Grove, like Linden, is one of our primary routes north, with the goal of winding our way to the river. And at some point, our own Riverside Park, but that's a little further west. So this project, unlike the one on Linder, actually grew a little bit. There are a couple, for the most part, there's 10-foot pathway, but there are a couple of segments where there's some residual 5-foot. So we have communicated with this HOA to ask about an additional bit of easement to widen the sidewalk from 5 to 10 feet. And then when we were walking the site with Matt Perkins, our city arborist, and just kind of looking at impacts and what should that route be? Should it meander? Should it be straight? We noticed that there was just a piece up to the north, and I'm sorry, I'm just drawing off the map because we haven't yet updated that on the plan. So this one grew a little bit. There's a bit north of the LDS church there, just to fill in those gaps that are now 5 foot instead of 10. So no easements. Yeah, we're still not quite at the point where we have easements on these projects, but we are, we've moved towards, we've made contact with most parties and we're just working to follow up. So the next project is Meridian High School pathway. At Linder and Pine, along the 9 Mile Creek. It's not, the 9 Mile isn't super contiguous here, but it does promise to connect with some of the more major pathways. It's got anyway, so we think this is, could be a worthwhile project. We already have an easement, which is why this one ended up on the list. It's a bit tight behind the ball fields at Meridian High School. We were hoping to go all the way up to Cherry, but there's some encroachment issues on the west. We're not able to take access on this northeast because both ACHD and Nampa Meridian use that. So these people have permission to encroach. There are some encroachments here where there's no permission. And I think our best bet will be to perhaps get out to the cul-de-sac and then have a low risk route up to a crossing at Cherry. So we're meeting next week with principal and athletic director to talk about how we might fit that pathway or, impact the facilities as to their preference, I guess. Okay, still along the 5 Mile pathway, but a bit further south, we're looking to connect across this quarter mile from Franklin and Locust Grove to Eagle Road. And Eagle Road isn't a really compelling pedestrian destination, except that it does provide a safe crossing over the interstate. So in that sense, it is important. So we're working to make this happen. There's some existing pathway at Franklin and Locust Grove. And then the proposed alignment is shown in this tone. When we got out on site, there's some existing features like a horse enclosure that we might avoid. So we're still kind of determining the route on this one. We found an easement here. We think it won't be any trouble to get one behind the church fence line. And there is a property owner who owns quite a bit in the center who we haven't met. He's proven difficult to reach. So we're hoping to work that out. It doesn't appear, well, we'll see how it goes. We're looking just to get down to the Woodbridge neighborhood, and that's our next slide. So just getting through the subdivision. So I've highlighted the alignment just because it doesn't pop particularly. But we've spoken with the Woodbridge HOA about paving what's an existing pathway through their neighborhood, and they seem interested. We're still working on it. We're going to double check to make sure we don't already have an easement. And again, this is important because some developments being conditioned to the east along the 5 Mile Creek will help to get us out to Eagle Road and across the interstate. Okay, now let me just pull, let's see, stop sharing. And then I'm going to reshare. If you'll pardon me, I'm just going to find the second part of the presentation. Does anyone have any questions or comments at this point?
There was an easement along Locust Grove that you said you were discussing. Are those easements with the subdivision? Is that part of the common space?
Let's see,
I think
back
it was
to,
Locust Grove north of McMillan.
was it north of McMillan?
Mhm.
Yeah, and those are with the Homeowners Association, who has a common lot, you know, that's wide enough to accommodate additional pathway. Those are kind of ideal because we, yeah, it's just one owner to deal with in 2 segments. So we've contacted them and we expect that it won't be a problem. Okay,
It's
let me
easier to deal with
just,
one as opposed to 20.
yes, as opposed to multiple owners, like James Court was that way, and it really took a long time. Okay, share screen, and this one. Let's see, so are you seeing that one now? And I'll get into, how about that? Can you see the 13 infill projects continued?
13 pathway infill. Oh yeah, continued at the bottom right.
Yes, Kim, but it's not in presentation mode just yet.
I apologize. I practiced this, and is it better, Rachel, do you know, to put it in presentation mode before sharing?
No, so once you have it in the just the not presentation mode, then just click that little button on the bottom, and then it'll pop up into presentation, and then you'll be okay.
Right. Is it better to share after I do that?
I think it might be, Kim. Why don't you try that? When I was sharing my screen earlier in that test, I did that. I went to presentation mode first and then shared.
Okay, let me try. Thanks for bearing with me. So what's happening is it's popping up on the screen and then it's full screen and I can't share it.
Well, whatever you did last time obviously worked. So just
it's fine. I know. Just one more. Let's see. I'm sorry, I think it's a function of me having too many screens here. So there it is, but it's not in presentation mode. How about that? Is that still in slideshow mode? I'm sorry.
That's okay. You can
I
see
think all
the
you need to
slide.
do is drag it to the other screen now.
I apologize. Okay. And again, these were in two different files because it was just very massive. Okay. What's there? Oh.
Kim, would you like me to pull
Can
it
you
pull it up for you and
that might
transition
be
for
better,
you?
Rachel.
Okay.
I'm sorry. What's happening is that I'm not able to get it to presentation mode, but yeah.
We're good to go, Kim.
Are you able to give me control or not? Am I able to use?
I'm not quite sure. Do you want to just try? I don't think you can, but
It's okay.
I don't know.
Anyway, let's continue. Sorry about that. I'm not sure what the mystery was. So anyway, this is the rest of the projects. If you could advance the slide, Rachel. So this was one of our most ambitious of the infill projects. Yes, the crossing of the Rheinbach Canal. This is important because along the 10-mile there, we have connections up to the northwest. And it's really key to getting people in South Meridian, even further southeast to the YMCA in Hillsdale. So next slide, please. It turned out to be really complicated. That's existing pathway. And then the crossing of the Rheinbach, we proposed to Nampa Meridian. And we have a good relationship with them. They're a good partner, and they very politely said, no way are we going to do that. And we kind of said, okay. And then as a consultant team, we looked at some alternate routes to the north. Is there a different place to cross? We kind of came to a stopping point. There are rules for, you have to fence the canal from pedestrians, but you cannot fence the canal from the irrigation district. So we shelved it and then picked it up again and thought, no, this is a really important project. So our goal now is just we have some ideas. We're going to go back to the district and say, respectfully, if we had to do this, we had to cross, what's the best way to make this happen? And are there things we can do, like north of the canal crossing, kind of between the canal and that red existing pathway line? There's a storage facility that Nampa Meridian uses, and we've wondered if we move that, if it would make their scenario more hopeful. Anyway, so this one is unlikely to happen soon, but we still feel it's really important. So I think we're going to keep it on the radar at the very least, and push a little bit, push in a friendly partner way with Nampa Meridian and see what we might be able to work out. Thanks. Next slide, Rachel. And then just a little bit north of here. So Locust Grove and Tuscany. If you'll advance to the next slide, this purple stretch of pathway connects from an existing pathway along the 10-mile creek in red out to Locust Grove. And when the city of Meridian built their water facility, they were conditioned to build a segment of pathway, which they didn't build because the Tuscany HOA really didn't want the connection. This is kind of a slight rerouting, but essentially the same proposal. We think it's an important connection. We did meet with the Tuscany HOA, and our best impression is that they feel about the same. They're concerned about traffic through their common area. They're not really very supportive of it, and especially if we can't make the crossing of the Rheinbach that's just south of this. So most likely we'll hold for now on this one until we can make the crossing happen. Next slide. Okay, Meridian Road and Victory intersection. For those of you who were on our Pathways field trip, maybe go back, Rachel. There was the Rheinbach goes from, what is it, Locust Grove to Meridian. We rode along until we got into the yellow circle there, and we came up to Meridian Road and there was just absolutely nothing. And and we debated the goat head issue, and we carried our bikes, and anyway, and then we were able to cross at Meridian Road in Victory, but then we had another adventure riding across grass and through sprinklers. So this project is an effort to solve those two problems. So next slide now. So on the right, you see the Reidenbach Canal, and this is essentially pathway across that gap that, that we ended up navigating. The consultant suggested we add a railing kind of as a standard detail, which I think is a great idea. But I think that's a pretty simple one, some coordination with ITD and maybe ACHD, and that one I think will be good to go. Over on the left, I'm not sure why I highlighted so brightly. The consultant looked at how could we make the entire intersection ADA accessible per all the current standards, which is our goal, but it ended up being quite extensive. So I think our plan for the project will be to not touch the crossings or the curb areas or any of the signaling, just to add pathway between kind of those existing paths and the sidewalk, so that where the red area is, just kind of keep to our own lane and let ACHD do what they do well in the intersection. This is actually due for, it's on their work plan for a redo. So we're just gonna wait on those other parts and let them do it. Next slide, please. Okay, and then at the very end of our route, when we were on the Pathways field trip, we paused at Stoddard Road and just looked up toward Bear Creek Park. And that's a connection that we need to make. Would you hold on just a minute? Guys, close the door, please. And I apologize, I wasn't on there. So looking to go north, Rachel, can you advance to the next slide? So again, north is to the right. On the top slide, the south segment, if we start at the Reidenbach, we're looking to do 10-foot pathway to north to the park. You can see where I've labeled the park and Victory Middle School. This project, it turns out, is also on ACHD's 5-year work plan. And they're going to be developing it soon enough, but I think we're just going to wait and cost share with them. So we will do some pedestrian facility, most likely from the Reidenbach Canal. They're also improving the bridge so we can participate in a wider bridge crossing and get ourselves up to the park. And then ACHD will also provide a 10-foot facility, at least that's currently scoped as part of this project. So if it was proposed, maybe there be another facility on the west. Can you go to the next slide, Rachel? Yeah, so it'd be better if I could point, but this is a view with north up. You can see Bear Creek Park, Victory Middle School, and then down at the bottom, the dark red is the Reidenbach. So we're looking to go north, but I think there will be a segment possibly on the west to get us up to Kodiak Drive. There are fewer, there really are only driveways and not roadways on the west. So that makes it ideal in some sense. And then if you look at the intersection, that's how the crossing works on the blow-up picture. And so anyway, it's a little bit awkward to go all the way around to get then over to the pathway on the south side of Kodiak. So we're hoping to get some pathway on both sides here in various forms and partner with ACHD to accomplish that. I think that's good. Next slide. Okay, this is the Lavender Heights connection. So just between the yellow circle and Discovery Park, a lot of new pathways going in with Lavender Heights subdivision. There's a little missing piece between Sky Mesa and Lavender. Next slide, please. And we've looked at this in more detail. It's along the far lateral. And it's again, one of those pathway projects that looks like it should be relatively simple, but it's an irrigation district we haven't worked with who's not very amenable to having the pathway within their easement. We may be far enough outside the easement that it works. Anyway, we're looking at options for this one, including needing to cross the lateral once or twice to get to Lavender Heights. And next slide, I think that was the last one. That was a lot. Does anyone have comments, or I'm sure Rachel would accommodate us by going back to look at any? Our goal is we're still not quite able to say go, no go with these projects. So we will be meeting with, I know Steve was going to ask Mayor Simison about how best to integrate this with the budget process, whether to, so we're considering that now and looking to identify a few to move forward into construction documents this summer, and then possibly construction next year. That'd be the goal, just to pick the winners from a feasibility and ability to have permission and build them, get them funded and go in 2022. Mike, do you have anything to add? I know he was in another meeting too, so
No,
maybe I called on him at the right time.
no, Madam President, no, I really don't. No, good job, Kim. That was easy to understand and really sums it up well. Thank you.
Those sleep pictures. Madam President, commissioners, anything else?
I agree. I think just because you had all the information and your different views of the different areas, it was really helpful to see what you're doing. So I don't have a ton of questions. I asked them along the way. I think it's awesome. I'm excited. I'm excited to see what we go look at this year.
Madam President and commissioners, I do think this might, some of these, maybe not this year, but next, might make for better bicycle pathway field trips. We're getting there. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. And it does also make me appreciate the pathway tours that we go on, because you can, we can visualize what you're speaking about. So.
Agreed.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Kim.
Thank you.
Have a good evening. Okay, we are moving on to old business with the new community center update with Steve Sidaway, the Meridian Parks and Rec Director.
Thank you, Madam President. Last month, I gave you the update about the community center project, that the partnership that we had been working on with Galena had dissolved, and that I'd be coming back this month with an opportunity to revisit the community center vision. And it just gives us a really good opportunity right now to double check what our thoughts and plans and vision are for that community center, while we continue to investigate the next phase, next step, partnership opportunities, locations, et cetera. So with that, I am going to try to share my screen. And is that sharing?
Yes, it is.
Okay. So this is about an update on the community center vision. And what I'd like to do is just run through it with you. And then at the end, I would just seek your feedback, comments, questions. The real question is this vision that I'm about to show you still on track with what we would like to see for our community? Still a lot of unanswered questions, but it's good to have a vision as we go into the project. At the bottom of this slide, you can see we put in a definition. Interestingly, over the last few weeks, there have been a lot of questions about, well, what exactly is a community center? How is it different than a rec center, which might have, swimming pools or weightlifting, or how is it different from a business center? So here's what we've come up with. When in doubt, go to Google and look up on the, the dictionary what they say it is, but a place where people from a particular community, in this case Meridian, can meet for social, educational, or recreational activities. So this is the words kind of define what we are thinking of. The picture, you know, maybe a sample of a building like that, but maybe it's 3 stories. This one looks like it's 2. But regardless of that, you know, it's a lot of windows and quality materials. But what's really important is what's in the words here and underlined. This Meridian Community Center would be much more than just a place to attend a class or camp. And just to pause for a second, that kind of is what our current community center is really just a place to attend a class or camp, which we're very grateful for. But we want the next version of Community Center 2.0 to be much more than that. The goal is to contribute to the quality of life of our citizens and fill unmet needs through quality activities, services, and spaces that enhance the physical, mental, and social well-being of our citizens, provide diverse recreational opportunities, and create lasting memories. How do we do that? Well, you can look at some of the images, this, you know, some of our inspiration photos, but we accomplished that goal by hosting classes, programs, activities, and events for teens, children, adults, seniors, and families as a whole. We foresee a lot more use, and these 2 paragraphs at the bottom talk about how the current community center has one room really that is packed full of classes. You just heard the update earlier tonight from Jenna. And we do already bring hundreds of people to downtown Meridian on a weekly basis. We would hope that the new community center with multiple rooms available would have the ability to bring thousands of people to downtown Meridian each week, and that plaza space that would be adjacent to it, design right, would be a central location for community events, markets, and festivals. We would like to see the community center have a presence at street level. There has been talk about whether it could be housed just on upper floors with retail below. That remains to be seen, but ideally for us, we would like to see it have a presence at street level with a plaza adjacent to it for those indoor-outdoor activities. It may be multiple stories, but we see that ground floor having a large gathering area and lobby where people can just come in and have a place to hang out with friends. Those upper floors would probably be where the classrooms, yoga or dance studio, art rooms, multi-purpose areas could be located for a variety of those classes. Revenue, we do expect City Council to direct us that it would be important to bring in as much revenue as possible. While we don't think that this community center would break even, just like the home court does not break even, but similar to the home court, we would like to bring in as much revenue as possible through rentable space and have this community center built for a variety of community activities, programs, and events, and things like, you know, business meetings that could happen when rooms are available. Partnerships are key to the success of a community center, and we see potential partnerships with the Treasure Valley Children's Theater, the Meridian Library. We just got a tour, by the way, Garrett and I, of the new Unbound library that'll be opening next month. Got a little preview of that, which was great to see what's coming to downtown through them. The Chamber of Commerce, which currently is housed in the in Story Park, in the building there. The Children's Museum, West Ada School District, and there's probably others that aren't even on here. So what kind of uses do we see? Well, of course, classes and camps will continue, and that'll be a principal use of the building. With more classrooms, we hope to double and probably triple the number of class offerings over time. Probably not in the first year, but certainly over the first 3 to 5 years, see that kind of increase in the number of classes that we're able to provide, provided we can find the instructors. That there could be some activity or play space, a place for that performances can happen. You can reserve rooms for banquets or birthday parties. Fitness classes can happen, or business and group meetings. You know, some uses will be scheduled and reserved, like classes, performances, parties. Like I'm calling and I want to reserve a room, but other spaces would be more general and drop in, like the lobby or activity spaces. This is going to have to be designed to accommodate multiple user groups at one time, so that you know, multiple classes, multiple activities, multiple groups can have things going on at the same time. So we need to think about, we need to think about noise, we need to think about access, things like that. Just a quick look. I'm not going to read the list to you, but you can see on the left kind of a list of some of the classes that we already do. And those would continue, and we would add to that list more class offerings. But there is a variety of classes that we already offer and would see that expanding. And then as kind of a central hub for events, you know, if it's near where the current community center is, you know, trunk or treat happens right there on those crossroads as its center. Could it be a location for the Christmas tree lighting, Children's Winterland Festival, which we currently use, the Boys and Girls Club gym? If we had a space of our own, that might be of interest. Concerts, theater productions, things like that. So how big is this thing? Well, we're looking for approximately 20,000 square feet. The minimum size that we've contemplated is about 17,000 square feet in our impact fee study. Our CFP over the last several years has had 22,000 square feet in it. So somewhere in that range. We have in impact fees, $3,847,000 that we would anticipate contributing toward this. But I need to make it clear that that's not the entire cost of the community center. The total cost for a community center of this scope is more like $8 to $10 million. And that 3.8 million is the portion that can be attributed to growth. And that's what impact fees can be used for. We have to find ways to fund the balance of that. The partnership with Galena was our previous vision for how to do that through a developer partnership. Of course, city funds can also be used. The city does plan ahead and save up in it for its capital improvement plan, or CIP. And if we are in an urban renewal district, then tax increment financing funds could be used for some of the public arena improvements, streetscape, things like that. So here is an overview of the space planning that we have been doing internally for, what are these rooms? There's an entry plaza. We'd like to see some seating and shade, maybe art. The lobby would have some informal gathering space, possibly a location for a coffee kiosk, so you can come in with your laptop, hang out. You know, not 100% for sure yet based on, you know, staffing models and things like that, but I'd love to see a drop-in activity area where, you know, if you're a teen looking for something to do, or an adult like me that likes to play pool, you can just drop in and play pool or foosball or ping pong if a table's available. Some play space for kids is on the wish list. Connecting to that entry plaza, so you get some indoor-outdoor connection. We see a large community room as our big main event room, and this could be for large gatherings, performances, banquets, about 5,000 square feet. But knowing that all events are not that big, we'd like to see that room be divisible. And that's one of the things that we learned last year, or it was almost 2 years ago now, as we were touring places like the Student Union Building, event rooms and things like that at BSU, and over at the Nampa Civic Center. And then one of the main ones that we went and looked at was the Barber Park event space. So we'd like to see that divisible. We'd also like to see 2 or 3, medium-sized rooms in the 1,000 square foot range. And those would be more for classroom size and parties and meetings that would happen. And then some smaller ones around 600 square feet for those smaller classes. 1 to 2 conference rooms that would be used for business meetings and the like. We've had the Chamber of Commerce reach out to us with a pretty strong interest in a use like that. You heard Jenna talk about, yoga and all these fitness classes that are happening. And so we'd like a special room that would work really well for them. Events come with kitchen needs, but we don't see us having a full service kitchen. We see us having a catering kitchen, much like the facility out at Barber Park has, where food can be warmed and served, but it's not cooked there. We see an outdoor plaza that is connected to that community room, the large one, and some green space. Include a city Christmas tree ? It's becoming more and more challenging to find the next Christmas tree year after year. And so there's some thought that maybe we either need to plant one, or more likely there could be something that's more just structural that could go up and down as needed. TBD, just ideas at this point. Possibly an outdoor restroom in that space. We need offices. We're going to have staff. They need a place to work. So we'd like to see 4 spaces built initially and some ability to convert other areas in the future. Of course, we're going to need restrooms. We need lots and lots of storage, and parking will be a challenge for this kind of community center. But based on our research with these other facilities, we anticipate the need for about 170 spaces to accommodate the kind of events that would be located here. Don't have time to get into the details, but this is just a quick slide to show the colorful spreadsheet at the top is some of the work that Garrett's been doing, looking at staffing models and, how could we do various staff numbers and hours to try and keep this place open. We've been told from the mayor's office that we will likely be limited to opening with 3 full-time staff. Of course, we won't be able to operate the way that we would like to till midnight on the weekends and things like that with that staffing model. But we have another model that we're looking at that's 4 full-time plus 5 part-time that would allow us to do more. We're also doing operational cost pro formas in the big spreadsheet you see down below, and working with finance departments and our planning department to test assumptions and see if we can find out, how much this will cost over time. So I think this is my last slide, and maybe just a quick thought to end. This is some research about what makes a successful community center. They need to be social hubs, centrally located, with a variety of events and programming, staffed by people that are well liked. And I like this last part. People tend to visit successful community centers as much to socialize there as to utilize whatever services are housed within them. So we're trying to build off of that model. And now I'd just like to open it up for questions and discussion and have you weigh in. For me, still kind of in wish list mode, but is this a community center vision that you would like to see us move forward with? What comments, feedback do you have for us?
Steve, I have a few questions. But what it seems like to me, in essence, is it would basically be like a city clubhouse. I know a lot of the subdivisions around here have a clubhouse. And so it'd kind of serve everyone as opposed to just one community. I think that the vision is on track because we lack indoor space. And so that's definitely something we need. I know I've attended events that were held at Sensi, or you said even over at the Nampa Civic Center, even if they were local events. Mike, I had two questions as far as that entry plaza. Would we have maybe a welcome center? And is that something that could go towards Chamber of Commerce, or is that a way that we could get funding? Because it seems like we would have maybe just for construction, like a $6 million gap. And how much of that can we make up?
Yeah, good question. So we are looking at potential partnerships with groups like the Chamber of Commerce. They are interested in a potential co-location scenario. We need to make sure that that's something that doesn't displace our own uses. And while there would be potential availability work hours wise to have them help out during daytime hours for like a front desk type activity or staffing model, that person whoever is staffing that front desk has to be able to take lots of reservations. It's more than just directing traffic to your classes on the second floor or third floor or whatever. It's going to have to be someone that functions as our staff. So we're thinking it needs to be a staff person of our own, but you know, all options are on the table still at this point.
Anybody else have it? John?
Madam President?
Yes, Commissioner Nesbitt.
Hey, I think it's awesome presentation, and I only got a couple comments. I think the business meeting space is well needed, and if you could put any more in it, my vote would be add another story. It's just something for especially downtown. I think could be huge to bring people to there. There's lots of networking meetings. There's lots of that kind of stuff that needs space. I would add more. I'd double it, and you'll still need more. The other thing that there's that little AEI or whatever electronics place. I know we, you know, like you discussed, you're over budget, but I would vote maybe MDC helping out, but wouldn't it be cool to level that little building, and then it'd be right by Compass. The whole block would be the community center, and it'd have a wonderful continuity, not with this kind of older rundown situation. And I think for the space that you're trying to build, like the banquet facilities, I think is hugely needed. Everything is needed, you know, classroom space, you name it. But for what you're trying to build, I think it would be awesome to try to get that extra room and then be able to capitalize on that space. And then it'd make a beautiful block with Compass, which they have a great building. And you want to have this beautiful building, this little eyesore, and another beautiful building. And I think you also need the space. So that'd be my 2 cents.
Well, I really appreciate the feedback. I think my quick feedback on that, is the AEI or whatever you were talking about, that the small building between the current community center and Compass.
Yep.
That, if you haven't been by it lately, it is in the final stages of a full, more than $1 million, I believe, remodel.
Okay.
So it is the location of the new Unbound library that the library district purchased that building. So they're also a great partner, and it's still be great to have them on that block. We are very much looking for partnerships with MDC, so I appreciate you bringing that up as well.
Perfect. Well, I guess the problem's resolved, then you don't have to worry about an eyesore. So, but yeah, okay. Now just business meeting space is all you got on your list. So perfect.
Okay, business meeting space. Got it.
Madam President, this is Commissioner Bevan. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. I would echo what Commissioner Nesmith said. It's sorely needed in downtown Meridian, a meeting space. My wife and I have talked about that since we've, for years, that, downtown Meridian needs something to bring people down there. I think it'll help the businesses that are already there. It'll help new businesses come in there for food and other entertainment. And the exact layout, I don't, whether it needs more offices, meeting rooms, whatever the city can figure out. Then comes the question, and if you talked about this and I missed it, forgive me, if you could refresh, what is the parking situation?
Yeah, so
if you have big events down there, what's that? Well, how's that factored in? Thanks.
You bet. So parking is a noted challenge. We're looking beyond just doing something ourselves, because those costs that I shared do not include the parking. And likely we're in conversations with the planning department, MDC, about structured parking. The city has in its own capital improvement plan. So structured parking is envisioned several years, out. I think it's about 5 years out, if I remember right. I can't remember for sure, but in that CIP or comprehensive financial plan. So it's still a nut that needs to be cracked. I don't have the exact solution to present to you right now, but I do expect that the solution is likely to involve a parking structure of some kind in downtown that would be a partnership with MDC.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Anybody else have anything? I just see the renderings and I get excited. I think that if we have, a space for people to come and use, it's really going to help not just Meridian, but downtown especially.
Yeah.
I think
everyone will come back. It's a good time for us to check in and just, test the waters on the vision. A lot of unknowns at this time, and whatever the final version looks like, it probably won't be exactly that, but we need a target to aim for, and right now that's our target.
It doesn't have to look exactly like that, but we have a lot of park space and we're known for that, but we don't balance that well with indoor space. So I think we need it.
Yeah, Meridian could certainly use more indoor space. We were excited when we got the existing community center as our very first little bit of indoor space. And then to add the home court to that was a huge step in the right direction. And now to be able, with the way the community is growing, to be able to add a real community center would be our goal and desire.
Really exciting. Well, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay, we do not have any workshops, so that leads us into staff reports. A few of you have already given some presentations, so.
I'll go first, and I'll just mention just a look out at the next few months, just for a preview, and then we can talk more as we get to agenda setting meetings. But an interest was expressed last month at putting together a golf course tour for the commission. So we are investigating the possibility of a golf course tour for the commission as our April meeting, and then possibly doing our Pathways tour as our May meeting. So we will still we'll wait and see if that feels right as we get closer. I just want to put that on the radar. In past years, not last year, but pre-2020, June has often been our month for a team building. But if we do those two other things in March and April, I would propose that we would need a regular meeting. We already have something on the radar to bring from the Arts Commission for June that would maybe need to get acted on then. And we can see what, late summer, early fall looks like if we want to do a commission team building event then. So I just want to maybe throw that out for just get on everyone's radars, and would welcome any comments on that. But I think that's all I want to add tonight.
I like the ideas. Okay. So moving on to Mike, do you want to go?
Yep. Madam President, Commissioners, thank you. Just a couple of main things that I'm working on. Discovery Park Phase 2. Taking the amenities discussion that you heard to council next Tuesday, and going to share with them your feedback on the current design and list of amenities, and hopefully from gain feedback so we can continue in earnest with the design and move forward. There's been some real progress on some transportation projects in the area, and really primarily we were able to kind of advance the Lake Hazel Road widening from Locust Grove to Eagle Road with a cooperative agreement between Brighton and ACHD. So that alone could be the catalyst for the park development. And in addition to that, we're Discovery Park Phase 2, we're coordinating. We're doing the design of the collector road in front of both the park, the new collector on the east, both in front of the park and in front of the police substation and fire station that's going to go in on the corner. So some items working with Stacy Redmond, who is the project manager from Public Works, on that one, and coordinating, and then also doing a lot of coordination with the gas company for possible pipeline replacements in the area. And Lakeview Golf Course has been a lot going on there with operations and working through the master plan. Hopefully everybody's had a chance to participate in some of the one-on-one interviews with the National Golf Foundation. And we have a draft capital improvement plan that's out for consumption and discussion. And we've been revising and trying to balance some of those items. So that's kind of what I got. And I will stand or sit for questions.
I don't have any questions, but I appreciate the updates. I'm excited about Discovery Park. Sounds like that's moving along.
Very exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyone else have anything? Pretty
I
silent
can go
crowd
next if
today.
you're ready, Ms.
What's that?
President. I can go next if you're ready.
Go ahead, Garrett.
Right on. Well, in the recreation world, we've got quite a few things starting to start up now that some COVID things are going away and we're able to start meeting with gathering size a little bit more. But recently, I've been working on FY22 budget and some fee analysis with finance. Been working a lot with CDH and protocols for COVID-19 with staff as well regarding those protocols, which leads into external events, all these events that happen in our parks and things like that. And unfortunately, so far, the Easter egg hunts have been canceled. That happens in Klein Aaron at J-Bill. The MS walk was just recently canceled as well. They're going virtual. So they're still doing something. And those three events are the first ones right out of the gate, starting in April, and they just didn't feel it was quite ready or quite safe for the community to have those large types of gatherings. So we're working with them, or I'm working with them right now to schedule them for FY22 and kind of getting that schedule ready to go. The other one that I'm kind of disappointed that it got canceled was the Kiwanis Swing Off. They again just weren't quite comfortable yet doing it, but they're moving forward. But on the brighter note, starting in June, there's a car show that's still planning on happening and a couple other things from there on. So stay tuned for events in the parks. They're just wanting to make sure it's good for everybody. Other things were just community center items, like Steve said, that's been put on our plate, and we've been doing quite a bit of work with that. Thanks to the one and only Emily Kane. She has helped me get the Meridian Youth Baseball agreements done and out and ready to go. And thank you, Rachel, for helping get it on the council meeting agenda. And then I've been working with our purchasing department regarding the Fuller Park RFP for concessions at Fuller Park, as well as the Kleiner Park concessions RFP. So been working with those. On the rec side, I don't really want to go too deep into it, but Audrey with the arts stuff, she's doing mural series, traffic boxes, HPC meetings, Meridian Arts Commission meetings. She's been busy. She's really never slowed down. We mentioned home court. It's open. Finally, we're ready to go. It's going good. Started off kind of a slow opening, kind of testing the water, seeing how many people are going to be in there. Then we just open it up. So it's going very well. Jake actually just got 2 brand new part-time staff hired earlier this week. So he's in the training process with them, and they're a much needed need over there. So we got them going. Those were existing positions that just got filled. Sports, like Shelly said this morning or today, the softball registration and spring volleyball registrations were today. The deadline was today. We maxed out our teams. I just checked with that. We can take 5 more co-ed teams, but we maxed out our men's teams, and I believe there's a small waiting list for that right now. And then our cornhole league just finished up. Skylar and Maggie are both working on the girls fast pitch tournament that's going to happen over Memorial Day weekend. And when we're doing that, we're obviously being very cautious with all the COVID-19 stuff still, because it's the end of May. So we are going to be working with CDH, and we still are right now working with CDH to make sure we're all good to go. Skylar's been doing really well with all the field reservations and making sure all the user groups in our community are using our parks and are scheduled. And then they're putting together a field analysis on what's available and what's not, kind of how much is being used. So that's what's happened in the rec world. So with that, I'll stand for questions.
I don't have any questions, but it doesn't sound like you're going to be less busy.
No.
It's, I don't consider that you guys have to work with Central District Health, to keep in communication, to know basically what you can and can't do. So I'm glad that you throw that out there, because I don't know, it's easy to see from this perspective. Everything looks great, but you guys put in so much work that just really isn't seen. So thank you.
Madam President, thank you for mentioning that. Our staff is just great. They get it. They all want to keep the community safe as well as themselves safe. So like Steve has said, we always try to do what we can based on what the orders are there and to keep everybody safe. So it's been good.
Yeah, I might just add, really appreciate all that's been done. The message I keep sharing with my staff is to focus on 3 tenets. 1, be safe. Make sure that until we're out of this, that you're doing what needs to be done to be safe with protocols. But number 2, do what you can. We still have essential services that people want and need in our community. So do what you can. And number 3, stay aligned with whatever orders are in place. Work with Central District Health, follow the governor's orders, and do that. So, with those 3 tenets, we continue to do what we can to stay safe, follow those orders, but to continuously do what we can to be open.
I think that having those 3 things keeps everyone positive. It's kind of been a no year. And so instead of, you guys have accentuated the positive and kind of completely eliminated the negative, but you make it seem a lot less.
Yeah, and you know, I got to credit that to staff. I mean, you got people like Renee, I think she's still on. She helped out not just with events, but she jumped in and started helping out with sports stuff. And she got creative and made different events like the heart drop in Meridian and those types of things. So we had to be creative, and we're just grateful to have staff like Renee, like Jenna, like Jake, like I mean, all the staff that we have it's been great, it really has.
You guys are awesome. Emotional. Okay, thank you very much, Garrett. Kim, did you want to add anything after your?
Thank you, Madam President,
presentation?
Commissioners. Unless you've heard too much on pathways. I will just give a mention to the agenda item that we deleted for today. We're still working on logos for our priority pathways, and we've been working with a graphic designer. She's been super responsive, and we've gotten some good work back. But not, I think it was last week, we just realized that none of them really felt like they were quite hitting. And so we're going to regroup. We will continue to work on it. I still think it's an important part of branding and identity for pathways. So just, you know, we made progress. We just kind of didn't get to the place where we thought we would. So we're working on it. We have a few construction projects starting up when the asphalt plants are ready and the mud is not too muddy. So Fairview Avenue, and we'll be paving a section up the Whitestone Bridge, which was installed over the 10 Mile Creek near Linder and Franklin. It's actually kind of a beautiful bridge. So that's exciting. Rail with Trail, the segment that originally started between 8th Street and Meridian Road, south of Broadway along the tracks. And we're trying to continue out to, Linder. We are still working on acquiring easements and or there are some cases where an easement should have been dedicated, but it wasn't. Anyway, we're working with all the different parcels and owners along that route to still try to move west as far as Linder. So Mike and Ted and I, Ted and Legal, have been meeting rather regularly just to sort of problem solve around some of these issues where we need an easement, but there's no HOA or so that's ongoing, kind of running in our background, making some decent but not blindingly fast progress. So if there are any other questions, I'll answer those now. Otherwise, I will leave the discussion for another time. Thanks.
I think that you answered them all. I would agree that branding is a very big deal. So I would appreciate, you know, you not being ready, then we just wait until you are. I'm excited to see what you come up with.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Pretty quiet.
I think that's everyone from our staff that had planned to do
I believe so, because nobody else is up here. So, well, except I see Renee, but she already spoke. Okay, well, I guess with that, I want to thank everyone for all of their presentations and staff reports. It makes it exciting to be this time of year. You know, maybe last year was a little scary, and this year it's not as scary. So with that, we could adjourn the meeting if I could get a motion to adjourn.
Madam President,
Yes, Commissioner Nesmith.
make a motion that we adjourn tonight's meeting.
Can I get a second?
Madam Secretary, this is Commissioner Bevan. I second the motion.
Okay, Commissioner Bevan seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great night.
Thank you, you
Good
too.
night.